Welcome to Uncle's Channel. Thanks for watching today. And let's talk about the artwork for all the Soulsborne games, including Elden Ring and Sekiro as well. And I'm not talking about the artwork inside the games, because we all know the art direction is phenomenal in the games. We're going to talk about specifically the box art cover for all of these games. We're going to take a look at the Japanese version, the English version, the special edition versions, and we're just going to do a little tier list ranking of all these games and see which ones are S tier artwork and which ones are D-tier artwork and everything in between as well. So let's just go ahead and start off here. Let's start off with the original Demon Souls box art for Japan. And when we talk about the box art for Japan, as you can see on the screen here, it's pretty darn cool looking. I mean, it shows the sadness of the game. I mean, it looks like your soldier or your main character here is dead against the wall. Either that or he's resting. I'm not sure. He looks sort of dead. But when you're resting in the game, sometimes you feel like you're dead because of all the defeat that you've had throughout the game. And it really conveys the frustration that can go with the game a little bit. And the armor set, you don't get it too early in the game. I think you get it in like World 3-1, 4-1. I'm not sure. It's not too far if you want to rush and get that armor set early on. But it's a cool little direction here. I mean, it's not the greatest box art cover, but I think it's a really good one as far as summarizing the feel of the game, the frustration in the game, and sort of the overall mood of the game. I actually think the Japanese cover is probably a A-tier ranking when it comes to that. Alright, when we got Demon Souls for the PlayStation 3 here in North America, the cover was a little bit different. And it basically showed you as a phantom coming back to life. And it's going to emphasize, I guess, like the multiplayer aspect of the game. And it's got the same armor set. It's a cool looking cover. I like the cover. But to me, it doesn't really emphasize the feeling of the overall game. You'd almost think it's like a Ghostbusters game if you just looked at it on the shelf way back in the day. I don't think it's a bad cover. I don't think it really summarizes the overall feel or mood of the game. So I'm going to rank it as a solid B tier cover. Not bad, but definitely not amazing. And then in North America, we also had the Deluxe Edition. Now, the Deluxe Edition is basically the exact same as the Japanese cover, and maybe they tweaked the colors a little bit, but for the most part, it's the same. It's going to also end up in A tier because it's basically the same cover. I probably shouldn't even have separated them on this list. And then we have the PlayStation 5 remake of Demon Souls. And holy cow, this is like the perfect cover for Demon Souls. Because if you look at it here, it's got everything. It's got the same armor set. It's got you in the main world here. And I know there's, multiple worlds you go through, but this is one you start in, the ones you end the game in. So this is the core world. You got the dragon up above, coming down over the castle walls, the core castle at the beginning of the game. You got all the major enemies that you're going to encounter, even the top hat guy over there. Forgive me for not knowing his name. But I mean, it really does summarize what this game is all about. And you're sort of standing there in a sense of awe. And that's one of the things that this game emphasizes over the other two, because we already played this game for the most part. This is going to be really testing what the PlayStation 5 could do. And so we're really trying to pull in that sense of wonder and amazement of how good this game is going to look. To me, this cover really does it all. It summarizes the game, looks awesome. Really a S tier cover if you ask me. Alright, let's move into Dark Souls. And for this one, we have 4 separate covers depending on the region and the edition of the game. Let's start off with the Japanese cover. Now, the Japanese cover to me is a amazing game cover here because it shows your character resting at the bonfire in the Firelink Shrine. And this is the core hub of the area, but also the atmosphere that it portrays here. And it really shows how important the unwinding is, because the game was so focused on frustration and overcoming difficulties. When you really get a chance to unwind and just sort of take a breather for a second, I mean, it really makes a difference. And this game really emphasizes that, and just a beautiful looking artwork in general. If I was going to have a poster of any of them, that would be one of the ones I'd want a poster on the wall of. So to me, Dark Souls, the original cover for Japan, that's an S tier cover. Perfect cover. And then we got the North American cover, which is like one of the worst Dark Souls or Demon Souls or any cover at all for this entire list. I actually strongly dislike this cover. It's one of the reasons, like, way back in the day, before I even gave any of the Souls games a chance, when I saw this cover, I was like, maybe the series isn't for me. I mean, it's your character here going through into, I guess, into the main world here, or going into maybe the abyss, and you see all these other reflections around you of other characters. I don't know. I mean, it's not a good cover. To me, it's confusing. It doesn't summarize the game. Some people say it's Artorias. I don't think so, but because he wasn't even a character in the core game. I mean, he was just part of the lore, so why would they put him in the cover of the game? I don't know. But to me, this is a awful, awful cover, and it's going to be our first D-list cover on this tier list. And then we bounce back a little bit with the Prepare to Die edition, and it's going to have just Artorias on the cover, like we talked about. The last one didn't have him on the cover. This one definitely has him on the cover, and that's because the DLC came inside of the Prepare to Die edition, and you actually got to fight against Artorias. And it's a fine cover. It shows the Abyss a little bit of what the, I guess, current Abyss would look like, not the past Abyss, because he fights in the Colosseum in the main game, but it's really just simply show Artorias. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. It's not a bad cover, but it doesn't summarize the game at all. And to me, it's a B or C. I'm going to say it's a B cover. It's a B cover. And then we have the remaster of Dark Souls. And the remaster here, it's very similar to the Japanese one, except you're not sitting down on the cover. You're actually standing up. You're still at the Firelink Shrine. You're still at the bonfire. But the sense of rest and the sense of taking a break, it's not there. It's just more of a, hey, I got to the bonfire, I'm lighting it up, cool. It's still a good looking cover. I still like the cover, but the meaning behind the cover is not there like it was in the original Japanese one. And so we're going to put it at a solid A tier. It's still a good cover. And then we get to Dark Souls 2. It's the game that everyone seems to hate on. I still think it's a good game, but we're not here to talk about the games themselves. We're talking about the covers. And so let's take a look at the Japanese cover first. Now, the Japanese cover is totally different than any of the artwork in any of the Souls promotional stuff over here in North America. And it basically shows your character here leaning over basically an item, possibly a soul that you're collecting. And I guess to me, I like it once again because it shows the sadness of the game. It shows the finally having that resting moment of finding that item. And it really emphasizes how important these items are when you come across them, because you finally were victorious. And it just really pulls in the mood of what these games are so much about. Now, I know some people would say the mood of Dark Souls 2 should just be a bunch of enemies all crowding you at once, just dogpiling on top of you. But to me, that's more of the joke of what the game is about. The game is still about the core ideas here of the desolation and the sadness of the world that's basically continually collapsing and then being rebuilt and new kingdoms arising only to fall again. And to me, this emphasizes the sadness of that while also pulling in the desperation and the relief of finally finding an item. To me, the Dark Souls cover in Japan is a phenomenal work of art, and similar to the Dark Souls 1 one, I think it's an S tier cover, and personally this would be one that I would love to have a framed picture of on the wall. Great piece of art. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we do have the Dark Souls 2 cover in North America, which is completely different looking. It shows you entering into probably a fog gate. It might be actually entering into a Memory of the Giants, and if that's the case, man, I love the cover. The color scheme itself is a little on the gray side, but at the same time, that does emphasize, the past that Dark Souls 2 tends to focus on, how the past continues to be repeated in the future and will continue on and on in the cycle. And so whether it's focused on the memories, the fog gate, I like the cover. It's a little bit on the bland color-wise, but overall, I still think it's a really good cover. And so to me, I'm going to put it as an A-tier cover. And then we have the Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin, and there's actually two versions, or three versions of this cover, but two are pretty much the same. And that's going to be Vendrick here holding the crown itself. And of these two versions, one's more zoomed in than the other. And this is a really good cover because it's going to be covering the DLC here. That's mainly why you bought the Scholar of the First Sin. You get all the DLC in one, and all of those focus on the different kings. And it's just a good cover. It's cool looking. It does show the emphasis on the kingdoms and the kings itself. So when it comes to ranking these two, I'm probably going to put the zoomed out one at a, since it did focus mainly on DLC, I like the cover a lot, but I'm probably going to put it as a, I'll put that one as an A and this one as a B because I like the zoomed out a little bit better when it comes to it. And then we have the fourth and final Dark Souls 2 cover, which is the PlayStation 4 version of Scholar of the First Sin. And it's going to show the Forlorn, and it's important to have him on the cover because he appears throughout the game within the Scholar of the First Sin. But, it's not really it's not a core element of the story. I do like the way it looks though, but I'm probably going to put it as a B tier when it comes to artwork for the game. Now let's move on into Dark Souls 3. And Dark Souls 3 has us 4 separate covers, but some of them are pretty darn similar. Let's take a look at the Day 1 edition. Now, Day 1 edition shows the Soul Ascender here, and he's leaned down upon his sword, and it's a good cover. There's nothing wrong with this cover, but it's pretty standard. I'd say it's a nice B cover. A good little cover. And then we have the Soul Ascender again here for the regular standard edition. And he is, of course, holding some ash there and letting it run through his fingers a little bit. Some people say it looks like he's giving a thumbs up. And once you see that, it sort of ruins the cover a little bit. But it's still not a bad cover. I'd probably put it straight there with the other one. It's just sort of a progression of what the Day 1 edition looked like. And then we have the Game of the Year edition, or the Fire Fades edition. And it includes all of the DLC. And of course, you have Soul Ascender here again. But he's standing up this time, feeling a little more confident, I guess. And to me, it's still on the same lines as the other ones. A solid B tier. And of course, now we have the Japanese cover for the Fire Fades edition. And this is a great cover because they finally decided to mix things up a little bit. They have the painter on here. We have a Gale on here. And Gale looks exhausted, you know. And that's really sort of the storyline for Gale a little bit because he was searching so hard for the blood of the Dark Soul. And this just shows once again the exhaustion and the resting that I love so much on the covers in general. And so to me, this one's going to be a step above. I'm going to put it as an A tier because it doesn't actually show the overall game. It's just showing the DLC. So to me, it's an A tier, but it's still a great work of art. Now let's move on into Bloodborne. Now Bloodborne has 4 different covers for us, but some of them are pretty similar. Now the one that was tend to be more international, and it's the one that has the hunter here looking upon the city that the hunt is getting ready to begin in. And I love this cover. It's great because it shows the environment that you're going to go through, the difference in this environment versus some of the Dark Souls games, and it shows also the attitude of the hunter getting ready to go in for the hunt. He's not necessarily going to be, you know, slowly looking it out like in some of the Dark Souls games. He's getting ready to go in there and accomplish his mission, which is what the game focuses on, the speed. And so this shows that determination and the readiness that the character has. A great cover. I'd say that is that's a solid A cover because it shows the environment, the character. It's not necessarily something I want to, like, you know, have on my wall, but hey, it's still a really good cover. And then we got the North American edition, which is a very similar cover, except they took the environment away. So you just have the hunter here. And to me, that is much, much weaker. I'd say B or C tier. Boy, I really just don't like how there's no environment and it just doesn't symbolize the game as much. But we'll go with a nice B tier. It's not a bad cover. It's just not as good as the other one. And then we have the Old Hunters. And of course, this is the DLC for Bloodborne. And it has Lady Maria on here. And it's basically her sitting back in the chair, waiting for you to approach. And it's sort of the self-imposed isolation or solitude that she put upon herself for the missions that she's accomplished with Kos. And it's a good cover because it's a beautiful background. Shows the resting that I like in all the other covers. And it's sort of the thinking cover, I would call it, of the Bloodborne era. And it's just a wonderful looking cover. It does just show the DLC, but that's what the Old Hunter was basically about. So we're going to put it as a solid A tier when it comes to it. Then we have the Bloodborne Game of the Year edition, and this is a confusing little cover. I mean, it's not bad looking. I like it overall. And if it didn't have the Old Hunter's Lady Maria down there at the bottom, just sort of, you know, photoshopped in there, I'd probably like it a lot more. I'm going to put it as a C tier just because it seems poorly designed, but it's not bad. And then we have the Sekiro covers, and both of these are drastically different, but I think they are equally good. One shows the resting side of it, and one shows the action side of it. The Japanese side tends to show more of an autumn cover, the resting side of getting ready to go into battle, and I think it's a solid B tier. And the American cover shows the action side, and I think it's also a B tier. Just different sides of the same coin for that game. But naturally, North America is going to have the action, and sort of annoying how we always have to have the action cover. We can't have the thoughtful cover. But hey, it is what it is. And then we finish things up with Elden Ring. And to me, this is a great cover because once again, it shows the isolation of the landscape that's happening. It shows the runes at the top with the symbol there. It shows the character in a resting pose of the world that's coming down upon him. To me, it's just a great cover that symbolizes the past of Dark Souls series, even though I know it's not a Dark Souls game. But it pulls in some of the ideas like part of the Dark Souls 3 cover a little bit, pulls in some of the isolation or desolation look of some of the Dark Souls 1 and 2 Japanese covers a little bit, and it just symbolizes what the game is overall about. To me, it's either going to be an A tier or a S tier. Man, I hate to put it on S tier of the 2 Dark Souls covers, so I'm going to, but it does have so much symbolism in it. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and throw it in S tier because it really is such a cool looking cover, and it is a work of art in and of itself. So to me, that's the breakdown of the covers. What do you guys think? Do you agree with my ranking of the covers here? Which covers would you put as S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier? Which one would you put as D tier? Are any of them D tier to you? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And as always, go out there, find a great game to play, and just simply have a great rest of the day.